Welcome to Seeds of Justice. This is Series 3, Episode 3, hosted by the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law. And this episode is co-organized with the Asian Development Bank and the United Nations Environment Programme. I'm moderating the discussion today, and my name is Georgina Lloyd. I'm the Regional Coordinator of Environmental Law and Governance at the United Nations Environment Programme Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. In today's episode, we celebrate International Women's Day, and we're going to be discussing breaking the glass ceiling for women in international environmental law and national environmental law. In fact, the whole field of environmental law. But we're also going to link this to this year's theme for International Women's Day, and that is digital, innovation and technology for gender equality. This represents a call to consider and address the disadvantages of women and girls in policymaking, better integration of women and girls into the digital era, and the creation of a more secure, accessible, inclusive, and equitable digital world. Of course, this theme has links in the field of environmental law and how legal professionals engage with technology. I'm joined today by three incredible women. The first is attorney Gloria Ramos, Vice President of Oceana Philippines. Gully, you co-founded the Philippine Earth Justice Center, a non-profit which institutes environmental cases and uses accountability tools to promote good governance while assisting stakeholders' compliance with environmental laws. So I want to start with asking you, what has inspired you to become a lawyer for the environment?
Thanks, Georgie, and thanks for having us here. It's really a very interesting. I think this started when I was small. We were always exposed to the environment. Nature was our playground, but it was Tony Oposa who really is responsible for me shifting my focus. I was a corporate lawyer, and then he invited me if I can join him in the newly established Integrated Bar of the Philippines National Environmental Action Team, helping him as a deputy for the Visayas, where I was then based, and that really changed everything. And I'm just so thankful. I had no one but I have Tony Oposa as my great mentor in this fight to protect the rights of our people and, of course, our environment.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, as Tony says, the law itself is land, air, and water, right? So it's the very foundation of our law is indeed the environment, and environmental law is so important. So let me turn to our next incredible panelist, Asia Y, who is a legal fellow at the Environmental Legal Assistance Center. And Asia, you're also a member of the Asia Pacific Youth Advisory Committee on Environmental and Climate Justice, which has been incredibly important in also supporting and informing the work of young people in the region. So Asia, I wanted to ask you the same question. What has inspired you to become a lawyer for the environment?
Thank you, Georgie. So for me, you know how the Philippines is an archipelago and there's so much diversity locally, like within our country. So when I was 19, I said I wanted to visit all the 81, well, now 82 provinces of the Philippines, just so that I can tell myself that I know something about my own country. And in the process of traveling, visiting pristine islands and lakes in the middle of nowhere during breaks or in between semesters, I fell in love with nature and the people whose lives are so intimately intertwined with nature, the nice landscapes, the amazing biodiversity here. So it just made sense to me that I have to do my part in protecting that, so that many other people can also still enjoy it or have that magical experience with nature. So for me, it's mostly because of traveling that's why I got into this environmental law thing.
It's really interesting. I think it's a common theme that it's really engagement with nature and being that opportunity to get into nature and learn about how communities interact with nature that builds a lot of passion and
Yes.
really inspires a lot of environmental lawyers. It's fantastic. Thank you, Asia. And so let me turn to our third panelist today, Sophia Caralde, who is a knowledge management specialist and youth coordinator at PARABUKAS. Of course, PARABUKAS is a women-led Asia-based international consultancy that focuses on laws and policies related to climate change, the environment, and sustainable development. So fantastic to have you with us, Sophia. What has inspired you to work in the environmental law field?
Thank you so much for inviting me here and representing Parabukas, of course. Aside from being close to nature, because I during my college I was really living at the foot of the mountain in Mount Makiling in Laguna, and when I graduated, I was looking for jobs here in Metro Manila, and that's when I found Parabukas. So my luntitas or my environmental lawyer aunties, so I called them, really inspired me to be in this field because I saw in them the potential of women in this kind of field that is always or is commonly dominated by men. And I saw how empowering it was being one of the few environmental lawyers here in the country. And for me, it's a very interesting field because not everyone or only a few people practice environmental law, and it's very inspiring every time I hear stories from them. So it's just being part of the group and belonging in this kind of community.
It's so interesting that you say, Sophia, that still there are not many women practicing in environmental law. And I mean, Gali, you've been at the forefront of environmental law work in the Philippines and internationally for a number of years now. Why do you think that there are still so few women practicing environmental law? I mean, do you think that there are some existing or continuing barriers that women face in the legal field?
I just would like to say that there are still very few environmental lawyers in the country compared to the number of lawyers, like 60,000 lawyers. How many are environmental lawyers? But in the field of environmental law, I see a lot of women now becoming a strong part of the advocacy, and that's really a welcome development. In fact, not just in the field of environmental law, you see leaders from coastal communities who are women. So in the Philippines, I'd like to think there are more women advocates fighting for Mother Nature. And that has also strengthened us. We know each other, and in the Philippines, we have Jerthy, we have Lisa, all women and young environmental lawyers such as Asia and Sophia. And I'm very sure there will be more. Planting the seeds of compassion and love for the environment comes naturally for women. And I'm not surprised there are many. There are now a growing number of women in this field.
That's so exciting. And it's interesting that you say that it comes naturally, you know, fighting for the environment. And I wonder if that's also because, I mean, both Sophia and Asia, you mentioned living close to nature and seeing how people interact with nature. And it's interesting to see whether you felt a particular passion there to engage with environmental law, or has it been because you've had a lot of female mentors that have been inspiring you? So maybe Asia, I don't know if you want to answer that. Or maybe Asia is just disconnected for a second. So maybe Sophia, over to you.
Yeah, I think for me, law wasn't like the first choice. It was more of advocacy activism. That's the closer to how I was in college, because it's back then it was easier to mobilize people, to connect nature with people, because it was like it's like a given, especially living in Laguna. We're so close to nature, so it's easy to make it relatable. Issues about environmental degradation, climate change were easier to convey to people. But I think the legal aspect of how I got here is when, after college, when I see how we how we needed systems change per se. Because I mean, advocacy is one thing, but also we have to complement it also with some legal strategies to make an overall impact in the community.
Yeah, thank you. And in moving to this sort of work in environmental law, particularly linked to advocacy, did you face any particular barriers? Do you think that there are any existing barriers, particularly that women face, for example?
The common experience for me is, since I started young. I think I started around 19 years old, fresh out of college, new with the environmental activism space, and new with the legal aspect and policy aspect. There was a lot of kind of discrimination, saying that, oh, you were young, you still don't know what you're talking about, or okay, I'll hear whatever your demands are. For example, back in 2018, we did a lot of climate strikes following Greta Thunberg's climate strikes. But then when we were able to talk to government officials, it's always like us presenting our demands. And then I remember one time, like in a closed door meeting, the secretary or the commissioner said, "Don't tell us that it's your demands. Like, demands are too strong to come from you as a youth." So they suggested that maybe make it as wishes. So it's more accommodating or milder when you come to talk to policymakers. And at that point, it's very disheartening. But then it made me realize that there's much work to do for me as an individual, and with this space that I can grow. But that was the barrier before, and sometimes it's still there, but then I learn and we learn how to um ride those challenges and persevere.
Yeah, so for you, it seems that the barriers have been more linked to perhaps assumptions about the capacity of youth rather
Sure.
than the number of women or men environmental lawyers in those positions. I wonder, Asia, whether you have experienced any particular barriers in the field of environmental law, and whether or not you think that those barriers have been linked to gender or have just been linked to other issues.
Okay. Um, for me, well, you know how environmental lawyers work a lot with communities on the ground. So maybe I can just share one story. So in 2018, I was an intern with ELAC, the same organization that I am with now. And then we were helping a community update their ancestral domain sustainable development plan. So a part of it, we have to cover the uh, the cultural part. So there was a heated discussion on the Duai system or the polygamy system that time in their community. So of course the women wanted out, the younger generation wanted it out, but then the older uh, men didn't want it scrapped out of their culture. So, and we were just facilitating the discussion. And then at the end of the discussion, in a very candid way, one of the older guys said that, approached me, and then in a very joking manner said, "Oh, ma'am, maybe when the time you get back here, you'll be one of the Duai," implying that I may be like married there. And well, I was younger then, and I was very surprised at at the comment because I wasn't expecting anything like that. So my knee-jerk reaction was, oh, sorry, you might be mistaken. I'm probably the one having the duai. Probably the one having two lovers at the same time. Basically, that's what I said. Okay, at this point in time, I know I should have responded in a more cool-headed way that time. But then, at that time, of course, parang I was taken by surprise. And well, a part of me realized that being a woman in the environmental law field, especially when you do field work, before they know that you're a lawyer, before they know that you're there to for official business, they'll first see you as a woman, and that includes all the usual problem, not problems, but lack of safe space feeling that other fields also experience when you're uh, a woman. So there's that part. And in relation to um, technology, it's still related to that in a sense that a lot of the people we work with are in far areas. So it's not as easy as it's not as easy for me to like have documents signed or have a meeting. I can't just go like very easily. So there are other things that needs to be considered. So I think part of it becomes inefficient that way because I have other things to consider. So there. So yeah, the communication part in technology
Yeah.
is
And I
a
mean, that
limitation.
that can create a barrier not only for women in the field of environmental law, but for the communities we're trying to serve. Because there is statistics, there is data that indicates that
Mm.
women have less access to the internet, have less access or understanding of how to use technology, which can then be a barrier in participation, which is one of the key values that we, of course, as
Yeah.
environmental lawyers, are trying to advocate for. So that's quite difficult. And I think that the story that you
Mm-hmm.
shared, Aisha, is probably something that others have similar experiences of as well, as being seen first and foremost not as a professional in your field of expertise, but how you present, rather than initially, what technical expertise you come with. I'm not sure, Gully, if you have had similar experiences. We've talked for many years about the glass ceiling in law, in the legal career, and that it can be very difficult for women to really smash through that glass ceiling. Certainly, has been the case in corporate law and criminal law and other fields. I don't know, Gully, whether you've had any experience of that glass ceiling in environmental law.
I don't know. I never felt it. Maybe because I'm an outlier. From the very beginning, I always thought of myself as a human being, not as a woman. So I really expect people to also treat me equally. I think I'm privileged, was brought up that way by my parents. And I also have strong women models. So I don't feel it at all. And I'm privileged to have had the experience of working with strong women on the ground. For example, in the fight to stop coal-powered plants in Cebu, I brought along our law students for them to be exposed to what's happening in communities. And the ones who met us were the mothers carrying their children. And I asked, "Where are your husbands?" And they said, "They're working in the coal-fired power plants, so they chose to stay at home." So you can see if it concerns their health, their survival. You can really see the women in the front line fighting for the right of their children more than anything else. But I know that it is a reality in our country. There's gender discrimination. And I also know of, for example, women fisher folk. who were not given because they were fisher folks, but women, but they were not given boats, for example, or gears because this belonged to the men. There's a lot that we still need to do to ensure that women are treated fairly in society. And I think one of the things that we have to do that is really create a platform for which they can speak out and accorded the respect that is due them as a woman, as a human being.
And the importance of strong mentors, I think, cannot be underestimated, because Sophia, you also mentioned that you called them your environmental law aunties, right? These strong mentors that
Mhm.
really paved the way and showcase the power of women in this field of environmental law. I don't know if you want to share a bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So basically they're called my luntita. So it's like luntita, luntian, like the Tagalog translation is green and titas are aunties. So they're my green aunties in environmental advocacy. So they've always been apart from, so they are like sorry, they are like my advisors in like my personal life as an ad, advocate, and then on the legal and more professional aspect as me being or studying towards becoming a lawyer. So they're very empowering because as in every time I encountered difficulties in leadership, like I've been switching roles from different organizations, trying to lead climate strikes to trying to raise more awareness about climate change and different issues, to mobilizing like youth for policy development. They were always like telling me that because before I was like I should know everything coming from the experience I told you earlier, that policymakers would often shun us down, like you still don't know what you're talking about because you're still young. So it kind of made me want to study a lot and like to learn everything all at once. But then they put me into perspective and told me that, Sophia, you're still young and you're in the stage in your life that you're supposed to learn, and you should not like stop yourself from continuously learning and admitting that you're still learning, because you can learn everything all at the same time or at this exact moment. I'm not supposed to know everything, but I should accept the fact that as an individual I'm still learning. So it's one of the learnings that I'm taking every time in this advocacy, in this legal field. But then, yeah, that's about them. And it's empowering to see how they also grew in this environmental space, because from their stories, they also started like as environmental law students, juggling their daily grind in law school, and then seeing them have their own firm, which is PARABUKAS, and then building a network of women environmental advocates, lawyers. So it's there's hope, like for me as a law student and in an environmental advocate, that there's hope that what I'm doing right now, there's something I can look forward to in the future, like in the near future. It's not like a very far away future.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think you ever stop learning, right? And we should
Yes.
never tell ourselves that our time for learning is finished. You know, this is
Mhm.
constantly evolving, and something that you know, we can always expand our knowledge of the field, and the way that we can achieve more and more and expand. But I mean, I completely agree with all of you that having strong female mentors has been also critical for me, in understanding the possibilities of women in this field, and also having incredible male mentors as well that have lifted women up and have made space for women, and have also advocated for the need to have more representation, and a greater diversity of voices in the field. You mentioned, Sophia, juggling. And I think that this is a topic that we should delve into a little bit more, because there's always this debate about work life balance. And honestly, it's something that concerns everyone, men and women. But for some reason, it keeps coming back to women. How do you do it? How do you juggle? How do you achieve this work life balance? And again, it comes back at maybe to those cultural assumptions that women are the ones who would be spending more time at home or be spending more time with family, and therefore there's more of a need to juggle and find that balance. So I think that, let me come to you, Gali. How, how have you, supported women and female lawyers to balance competing demands of work and life, and how have you done it?
Yes, well, as I told you earlier, I've always been a fighter for equality. So taking care of kids, we have a cut-off time for my husband to be in charge, me until 12 because we were both working. So I didn't pamper him at all. Never the one to pamper. And going to for medical consultations, he's always there, and he should be thankful to me because the kids are close to him. In the Philippines, the male are pampered, and I'm not the one doing that. But really, work life balance is so important. Especially if you're so passionate with the work that you do, sometimes you forget to have this time for yourself. And I'm still learning that, but it's for mental wellness and for recharging yourself. You really need time to be still or to be doing uh, whatever that you still want to do, because otherwise you'd lose yourself, and that's so sad. And that's one of the things I really tell our team and people who are close to me, the young lawyers, really find time to pamper yourself. That's so important, because you matter, your health matters. But the pandemic has really been a real test for all of us. So what we did was bring in like wellness program for our team. So it's a work that needs to be done, for especially for those who forget that we need to be kind to ourselves, and that matters a lot. And I hope our young lawyers are listening as well.
Absolutely. I mean, for Asia, for you, I mean, is technology a tool here to help balance work and life?
Yeah, of course. Wait, can I just say my fiance is listening across the room right now. I think he's getting a sneak peek of the future just by listening to Ma'am Golly's sharing. Anyway, but yeah, I think technology is a very well, for me it has been game changing, because especially with how the pandemic shifted everyone to online meetings. All of a sudden there's so much social acceptability on online calls, online meetings. It's easy to make urgent meetings, unlike before. And even if, like right now, I chose to work in Palawan. It's a separate island from where I used to live in. So my family is far away from me. Everybody technically is far away from me. But then I can still catch up with them. I still am able to meet with my Saturday group. So uh yeah, every Saturdays I have this group where we do um like meeting. It's not a meeting, it's like a prayer session, and then share about life, try to process the different experience that we're having. So it's a trusted group of friends, and a lot of us are also young lawyers navigating our way into this like legal world. So there, I think technology has helped me bridge the gap between me and my loved ones, uh, since I chose to work there. Because, well, to my simple mind, the environment and the things that should be protected is in uh, Palawan. And even for the community members themselves, uh, right now trainings can be done hybrid. So there's a facilitator physically, and then the resource persons can be online or even recorded. So all of a sudden, there's access to these amazing resource persons, and they also are able to interact with the community members, although online. So I think that helps also because there's more sharing and accessible environment because of technology, and it helps us also balance our work-life balance.
Yeah, I think this with the pandemic, this acknowledgement that people can still deliver and can still work efficiently remotely actually has a lot of potential for women, particularly to balance work and life. You know, this idea that maybe we can have a phase following maternity leave where we just working remotely that would still give us access to family but engage back in the workplace at the same time, and lots more opportunities now that we're perhaps not having to be in the office 5 days a week, 6 days a week, however you happen to be working, but maybe on a certain number of days we can be working remotely, we can be having that flexibility engage but still being just as efficient, and really committing to our professional goals as well. I don't know, Sophia, if you find that technology has helped you in a way as well to balance work and life.
I think yes, definitely. Because early days of the pandemic, like everyone's remote, so you have the time to actually do things that you love outside of work, or like you can do more of those things because you can finish work in like an hour or so, and then you're done for the day, and then you can do random things already. And then I think one of the perks of working remotely and with the digital technology now that it is more accepted, is that women can really work anywhere they want to. Like I have colleagues who's tried working in coffee shops near surf areas, near the beach. So it's really accessible to live your life while doing work. And it like the work is not anymore limiting you to see the wild world outside. And I guess for me as like a younger person, it made connecting to other people easier. Like I'm not limited to connecting working with Filipino youth here in the country, but it gave me opportunity to work with other youth across the globe. So in a sense, it made us feel more connected than we were before. However, I think there was like a negative effect on that because everyone's kind of expecting that I'm always on my phone, I'm always online, ready to answer, ready to work. So it kind of blurred that one. Though I know like sometimes I'm willing to do work beyond work hours, but sometimes it's really blurring the lines of when I should rest or when work is done. So, but then it's like Attorney Golly said that it's also recognizing that I'm a human, we're a human, and we're a resource that should not be overexploited.
Absolutely. And you know, it goes both ways. I know for me, you know, coming back, you know, working in the digital world and being online all the time was fantastic because you got access to colleagues and spaces that you maybe didn't before. But then there was this assumption that we could then join all the meetings, that regardless of whether your colleagues were in New York or whether they're in Geneva or whether they were, you know, you could join that meeting even if it was 10 p.m. Or 5 a.m. You know,
Yeah,
yes, in theory, it's possible.
it makes the time zone kind of tricky because not everyone understands how it goes. So like they're sending call links at weird hours of the day, and then like they're expecting you to just hop in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we have to set our own boundaries here, right?
That's
So
the word. Boundaries.
boundaries. Yeah. And we have to be also confident in being able to set those boundaries, because sometimes it can be difficult to set those. But the other thing that you said that I thought was very important is that because we know how to use technology and we know how to engage in a professional way over the internet, it gives us a lot of extra opportunities and potential. But one of the statistics that is being shown for this International Women's Day is that 37% of women do not use the internet. And that there are 259 million fewer women who have access to the internet than men. And so it is just as important and very important for us to extend those opportunities to women so that they are able to work remotely and be able to engage across all fields, not only in environmental law. That
That's right,
yeah,
Georgie. As you said, we have been provided opportunities to be able to reach out. And for example, what we did was really reach out to our coastal communities. And many were hesitant initially at first, and then they saw the benefits. And what we did was having this communications planning with the children, because the children are more adept in using technology, and for them to be able to also cascade their learnings to their parents, including their mothers. So that was really also an eye opener for us. And we also really believe in empowerment of our youth. So the youth are the ones who really help their parents in helping in assisting them in the use of technology, because you have to be comfortable with it before you would even explore. So yeah, that's one of the possibilities that we can do to reach out to as many women, for them to be comfortable with the technology.
fantastic. Well, which leads perfectly into my final question of what recommendations and practical advice or suggestions would you give to empower women in the field of environmental law? And indeed, one of them sort of reaching out to youth and young girls and women, I think, is a really important one. But just very quickly, maybe just two things from everyone of what other sort of practical recommendations would you give to empower women in this field? So maybe over to you, Asia.
Uh, Maybe first would be um, to not be afraid to try new techie things, because I often hear this in my work environment. Some people um, are are afraid or hesitant to to try Canva or to try um, artsy techie things online, because it's very user friendly these days. Parang it just takes willpower to use it. And then second would be to always be grounded in touch with the things that make you feel alive in this field. Because sometimes when we're so passionate about what we're doing, it's so easy to overwork uh, ourselves and then get too focused. We forget that like earlier said, we're also human beings and we need to be refreshed every now and then. So it's very important to know ourselves that way, what refreshes us, so that we can be in this field longer.
Wonderful. Sophia, over to you. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think on a practical side, it's be, how do I say this? Um, Learn the security aspects of dealing with digital technology, because digital technology is relatively easier now, but the negative effects or how other people could jeopardize your security is also made easier. So especially for women, that's a bit, or that's scary for us. So I hope that we're safe when we're using this digital technology. Be careful with the informations that you share, and of course be with a group of friends, network that also supports you, guides you through the process.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Gully, your thoughts?
Yes. Yes. Share what you have, what you know, your resources. For example, there's this platform that women fisher folk leaders can be together. So we're providing that platform because so many things can happen out of that. I'm a big believer in the power of women to effect change. So at every opportunity that we have, we really use that. In fact, on March 10, we're going to have that platform for them to be able to form an association by which they can be there. And the other is really, we have this Philippines has fantastic news for women to be part of decision making, and they should be engaged in that. And like for every village, local governments, there's a law that women should be a representative of the local legislative body, and that is not happening, but we should push hard for it. So that's sort of my dreams for the women in the Philippines to really fully avail of the benefits that our laws have provided them, but which some are really scared to implement. I don't know why. They're scared of the power of women, perhaps.
Definitely should not be scared of the power of women, right? I think that that only can lead to good things. So thank you very much to Gali, Asia, and Sophia for joining this episode. It's been fantastic to speak with all of you. And we need to continue this discussion and celebrate women in the field of environmental law, not only for International Women's Day, not only in March, but in every month and on every day. And so we're going to continue this discussion also in a second episode that is going to be broadcast or released on the 21st of March. But thank you very much for today. Thank you, Asia, Sophia, and Gully. It's been really lovely to talk with you.
Thanks so much.